to Ready to be Romanced. I'm Torry.
And I'm Haley.
And today we're discussing The
Duke and I.
Did we nail that?
I think we stuck it.
So. It's a little easier when it's such a short title. I've had troubles with the ACOTAR series. Let's just say that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Haley, welcome to Ready to be Romanced. I'm so excited to chat with you. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your podcast?
Yeah, I am a long time, I don't want to say like hopeless
Stop
romantic,
the way that
like,
you're already starting with that. Like, I'm fucking dead. That is so cute.
I'm sorry. Like this, I'm just like a dreamy Libra girl. Like, and I've just been Libraing out since like birth, basically. I've always loved a story with a happy ending. I've always been a big reader because I had big feet and a tiny body and I couldn't participate in any sports. So I turned to books, and I've always loved the happy ending and the cute looks, and, romance. And then that has kind of like led to where I am now, which is, you asked me about my podcast. I podcast about The Bachelor, Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, all of those series. I've always loved, again, the shows with a happy ending. And I know The Bachelor doesn't always have those, but it's fun to hope. We always find ourselves at the end of the season being like, I really think these two crazy kids are gonna make it, and then like 3 weeks later they're like, we've mutually decided to end our beautiful loving relationship, and this has been such a journey. And then I'm like, what a crushing blow to the heart. So this has always been the world I have lived in. I was so excited when you started this podcast because it could not be more up my alley. I love just listening to all the little episodes, but I'm finding myself
read other books.
Read other books, first of all. And then like place holds on the library, so you can never text me, be like, hey, did you like the episode that came out this week? Ask me in 6 weeks when the hold comes in.
The worst part about that. Yeah, I have that issue too. Like, have you always, so you're saying that you've always read romance? Like, so I guess you read YA.
Yeah, like I read YA. Like I would say like my major influence was like Sophie Kinsella books. I felt like those were actually like really good entries into the romance genre, especially when I started reading them. It was like 13 or 14, and they're not like heavily intercourse. Like they're very light on the intercourse. So like that was kind of like a good entry. And then like into the deeper, I would say I don't do hardcore smut. I do like loving smut.
Yeah, that's fair. I go like back and forth. It depends on the mood. But I also read all the Sophie Kinsella books. We should talk about those. That's so funny because I'm pretty sure
we should book me in for another episode.
I'm pretty sure those books, it's like the romance is off the page, right?
Yeah, like once in a while you'll get we were up all night, or like we had sex all night or whatever, but it's not like he slipped his engorged member into the lady folds and I'm just waiting for him. It's not like that.
Oh my God, those books are so fucking funny. What tropes do you like? Like this is one of your tropes, Regency novels.
I love a Regency. I cannot help myself. I don't know what it is. I love a ball. I love a woman who doesn't have to have a job. She just has to be pretty. Well, I find like a lot of these books, like I'm sure in the Regency times, like the women were like softer. And we kind of like get those in the secondary characters oftentimes. It'd be like, oh, this person has always been able to like walk with grace. But a lot of the leads of the Regency romances I'm reading, like they're not like boring women. Like they, will stand up for themselves. Like it's always noted that they're clever and like funny and, have a quick wit and stuff like that. So I like those. I like that. I would say my ultimate trope is a true enemies to lovers. Like actually hate each other and then just make out. I hate the ones that are like the guy has actually always loved her. Like that's not my thing. That's the girl being an idiot and like not being able to
that's
the
so
room.
fair. Yeah, like where it's like it's the older brother's friend and they like tease the younger sister, but they're like actually obsessed with her. Like that's not true enemies to lovers.
No, like or like I hope it's okay if I spoil a couple of these, but like the hating game, like not true enemies to lovers. The Spanish love deception, not true enemies to lovers. Like it's just the girl being a hater.
Which is fair, but like Yeah.
Like, fair enough, but
Yeah.
like that's not what I want. I want the sparkling chemistry of two people who cannot stand each other, and it's because of how like
Totally.
into each other they are.
That's why I like
They just
friends
can't
to lovers,
resist
but like it just doesn't hit like enemies to lovers.
it. No. Yeah, so that's my like number one, and I feel like it's not done well a lot. So when it is done well, I'm very excited by it. So if you have any good enemies to lovers, slide into my DMs.
Yeah, and they can find you at your bookstagram.
I have a bookstagram at the Strong Library.
Yeah, super funny reviews. I wish, like, here's the thing. I wish that I could have a bookstagram where I review like you do, where you're putting like paragraphs of details about like the main characters and stuff like that. It's like sometimes I have finished a book, I've rated it on Goodreads, and then I do not remember the plot, the characters' names, or like anything about them to write anything.
Well, I have to go on Goodreads and be like, okay, let me read. Okay, I remember but I always remember how I feel about it, right?
Exactly.
Like I'm always like, I know when
Yeah.
it struck in me, and it's almost like nice to have that format where I write those things down, because I find personally if I write something down, then I can like remember what it is that happened. So I find myself like in that exercise writing it down, like my recall is better on like, oh, like I read this book and this is why I liked it. Or like even who I'm talking to, like would this book be able to be recommended to that person based on what I know? And like I have a lot of people who come to me and be like I know like we have the same taste, like I know if you like it I'll like it, and if you don't like it I also won't like it. So like that's fun to have those communities, or you know, people getting a grasp of my taste and being like, you should read this one, I think you'll like that.
That's
and that
best.
like a big one last year was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I had somebody be like, I really think you'll like this one. And reading the description, I was like, IDK, man. Like it was like a time jump romance. I was like, I don't know, but I absolutely loved it. And it was probably my favorite book I read last year.
Okay, I'm going to add that to my TBR because I've actually never read that one.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's so funny. Okay, so you're convincing me to do better at this, because I will say with this podcast, like I know this is getting into the weeds and then we can like actually talk about the book, but like
I think people are here for the weeds.
Okay. I hope so too. But like I sometimes am rushing so much for the dopamine hit of like the climax of the book. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes like true climax and literal climax, or like literally finishing the book and like marking it on my little fucking Goodreads account, that I feel like I like rush through. But this podcast, like the books that I actually have to spend time on and like really read and like write down things, I've enjoyed so much more. So maybe this is like a little bit of a lesson for me, or like a reflection that it's like I should spend a little bit more time or like write something down or something, because it's so funny. All the books I've covered so far in this podcast, I'm like, these are like 4-star books, 5-star books.
Yeah.
And like so many books I read, I'm like 2 stars, like 3 stars, like let's move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. I know what you mean, because I can be like that too. And I am like a very quick reader, but not in like a way where I'm reading like 120 books a year. Like that's just not me.
Yeah.
I go through really big ebbs and flows. And so people will be like, you read a lot. But it's in January, I will admit, I did read 9 books, which is like extreme for me.
That's a lot.
But I'm a book rereader. So, you know, I started reading The Duke and I couldn't stop. So I read the next 3 in the series after that too. But I've read those ones before. Like I've read The Viscount Who Loves Me, and I'm not kidding, and this is embarrassing, at least 50 times. Just because it's one of those like
comfort books
you put on The Office because like it's just comfortable and you don't have to like really take it in. Or like if I'm in a reading slump, I'll pick that one up because that usually like jump starts me. And so like my husband and I were having this conversation. He's like, well, you read books too fast and you read too many that you're like not taking them in. And I disagree. Some of them, sure, maybe I'm not taking in, like the Tessa Bailey ones. I tried not to like hold that into my being because I just can't have it live there. But I was like, I read The Ballad of the Songbirds and Snakes at the beginning of the month, and I have made The Hunger Games my entire personality for the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, my friend owns the book. She's going to give it to me so I can read the paperback. But like we went and saw the movie together, and it really stirred something in me that was dormant for years.
So long. And like when The Hunger Games originally came out, like I was in my not apocalyptic, but like what was it? What's
oh yeah, no, we were
you know that like
yeah,
the
dystopian.
divergence,
Yes.
dystopian, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was there with you.
And the Hunger Games I loved so much, but I couldn't reread them because they gave me such intense nightmares. And I was also starting my giant Survivor rewatch at the exact same time. So I'd have all these really weird Survivor Hunger Games crossover dreams. So I could never go back and reread those. But I started seeing clips on TikTok about like the movie of Songbirds and Snakes. And I was like, I think I gotta watch this. But if I'm gonna watch it, I have to read it. So I read it and I was like, I have to read the Hunger Games again. So I did. I still got nightmares.
Yeah,
but it was so good. I forgot like how good it was. And now my whole FYP is just like Josh Hutcherson like edits.
Oh my god, what about Tom Blythe though? Like
I know, yes, but I am like such a pita girl. I always have been, always will be. I love a soft man who bakes bread. Like that is just like everything. I'm like, yeah, I'm into this.
Yeah. Okay, and please, like, we don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but I haven't had a married girl on the pod.
Oh my gosh, I forgot.
I forget regularly. Is your husband, do you feel like he has some qualities of your favorite, like, book boyfriends?
Oh, that is interesting.
Does he do any of the the book boyfriend, like, tropes? Like, did he lean on the wall when he was, like, wooing you? Or, like, did he, like, graze your fingertips in an art gallery?
I came on to him. I feel like that's
okay.
Like I was the one who's like, we should go out sometime.
Love that.
Those kinds of things. He is also a soft man. Like he is very delicate. He's not gonna like. I'm not into the men who like hit the wall because they're so angry with jealousy. Not for like no jealousy, thank you. Like I don't. That doesn't do it for me. Like the ones who are like, I'm so upset. Like not for me. Like I like a soft man who's like, hey, I got you this small gift that like I knew you'd like I like gifts and he's a good gift giver. Yeah, he is probably like he's definitely like the type of guy I like in a book too.
I love that. That's so I know.
I'm like I'm having to like reevaluate everything I've ever done. Because of like the anxiety of like, oh no.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're like, I need to divorce this man. No, I agree that like reading jealousy and that type of stuff on the page is fun, but it's like IRL, you don't want that toxic man. Like
no.
Yeah, so that's nice.
I just want somebody who's nice to me, who'll go on like soft girl walks and like that's it. Like that's all I want.
I love
and like
that.
he's gotten more into reading too as like, because I read a lot. We do not read the same genre of books. So it's always funny, like he'll look over my shoulder and be like, what are you reading?
That's the worst when someone asks, what are you reading? It's like, don't fucking ask me that question. Like,
I was reading like Icebreaker and he like looked over my shoulder and he's like, what? What? No, like you're not like, no, that's no.
No, that's like why I got a Kindle is because I can't bring these hard copies on the bus.
Kindle. I was reading it on my Kindle and he like was like, he like caught one word and was like, or a couple weeks ago he was reading The Long Walk it's by Stephen King. It's the pen name is different on it. And so I read the Wikipedia page so we could have a conversation about it. And then I started reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. So he read the Wikipedia page about it. And so like when I finished, he was like, what about this part? What about this part? He's like, this was the most, he was like, what? That doesn't make sense. He's like, what are you reading?
No,
like,
half the shit doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so we have a very different taste in books.
That's fair. Okay, let's get into it. I want to say off the bat what Regency romance is, because as a like relatively new romance reader, I kind of knew but like didn't really know, but it's a subgenre of romance novels set during the British Regency, which is 1811 to 1820 or the early 19th century, and a lot of it has like references to the ton, which we'll talk about, social season, rankings like Duke, Viscount, etc., balls, operas, dinner parties, carriage rides, house calls. Like it's so fun. I was like, I know we didn't have rights then. we were treated as
and like
second-class
you and
citizens.
I would not be in the ton We do like the ladies' maids or the printing press girlies. Like we are not going to these balls unless we are serving them.
No, the whole time I was watching the first season and looking at Daphne's like fucking swan neck, and I was just like, I'd be like the Philippa Featherington or something if I was in society, but like no, like 100%. And I know we were treated as like second class citizens, but like there's something that's just so fun about like going to a ball, sleeping in, just eating snacks and doing hobbies, and then
having
like
tea every day at the same time, and you get snacks with it. You get lunch, and then you get tea time with more snacks, and then you get dinner. Like that's my dream.
I know, literally. And then just like going on like a nice walk around a park, like
all I love walking around parks.
It sounds so good. And I know a lot of it's like heavily romanticized in these books, but I'm like, fuck, like take me back. Take me back, but it's not my vacation. It's to Regency, England.
Oh, and like a lot of it, you can like they'll be like, this wife actually hates her husband. And it's like, okay, I wouldn't want to be locked into that.
Totally. Yeah.
One of the interesting like actual historical aspects of this is that like it is called the Regency era because near the end of King George, whatever number he was, I'm not good at numbers, not for me, thank you. He had some sort of mental illness, or it kind of comes off as like dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that. So he wasn't with it by the end of his reign, and so the Prince Regent was kind of the acting ruler at the time. So that's why they call it the Regency era.
Right.
Like the Victorian era, that's Queen Victoria, or like the Edwardian King Edward. Elizabethan Queen Elizabeth was
Okay, why did I just learn more in those two sentences than I ever did in like a history class? Like
watch somebody like message you and be like, what Haley was saying is not
literally. I feel like,
but I said it with confidence that you believe what I said.
No, but it like makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you didn't get the memo, we are discussing The Duke and I and season 1 of Bridgerton, but we will not talk about anything that comes after that, so we won't spoil you. But there'll be spoilers for that book and that first season of TV. Written by Julia Quinn, and I've got some fun facts about her when we do our internet investigation. But this book was published on January 5th, 2000. So this is like a almost 25-year-old book.
Yeah, and some of the aspects of it feel 25 years old. And there's a real difference in the writing of this. If you put it next to, say, the Queen Charlotte book that came out kind of as like a side piece to the TV series, where that feels like we're not dealing with it, or not that we're not dealing with society, like we're kind of like commenting on those issues more. Like it feels more current than this. Like there are some aspects in The Duke and I where in 2023, 2024, we're cringing about like the actions, where in 2000, like it may not have been the case for us to be like, whoa.
Totally. And sometimes that's why it's tough for me to read Regency books, because it's like I so have my 2024 brain on. But yeah, I could see why people had nothing to say in 2000, and now we have like a lot to check in about. But also, like, I think that makes sense for Daphne, because she is that bitch that, like, no offense, like, love her, like, but like airhead. Like, she's not commenting on societal issues.
No, and she wasn't like taught to. Like, it's and because she had the weight on her shoulders of being the first daughter. Like she was like, she had to be like a wife and a mother, and that's all she was trained to do, where that almost takes the pressure off for a later character like Eloise, where we saw it especially in the show. I feel like they kind of really went on that, like, well, I'm glad that pressure's on you and that I don't have to bear it. And they lived very different lives, even though they're in the same family.
Totally. So let's get into the book. In the prologue, we meet our main character, Simon Bassett, who's the Duke of Hastings. We learn that his mom passed away during childbirth and that his dad lived in London, but he was raised in the countryside. And that's because he didn't speak until he was 4. And when he did start to speak, he had a stutter and like a lisp. For some reason, stutters like get me in the heart so much, just because it's such a, when you listen to his inner monologue about when he's getting flustered and starting to stutter again, like I literally was like weeping.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I just want to give you a hug.
I know. And we entered the book and it's present day, which is 1813. And then we meet our other main character, who is Daphne. Daphne Bridgerton, as you said, the eldest daughter of the Bridgerton clan. She's combing over a scandal sheet that is written by Lady Whistledown with her mom, Violet Bridgerton. What I would give for a scandal sheet about my neighborhood.
I mean, right? Like, I get it. You and I, we're the gossip girlies. We love, you have a whole podcast on it, like of just being like, okay, so here's what happened this week.
Yeah.
You are Lady Whistledown.
Yeah, in some sense, yes. I guess we would probably have to give that to Dumois nowadays.
Sure,
but like,
sure. That's fair.
Yeah, but like, no, totally. Like, I fucking love this concept. So basically, they're saying that the scandal sheet randomly showed up at their door, but now you have to like buy it for 5 cents from a paperboy. I know. So it's like she marketed that extremely well, where she was like, I've got you looped in, but now you have to pay for it. And we learn more about their family, that there's 8 kids and they're all named alphabetically. So we have Anthony, Benedict, Colin, Daphne, Eloise, Francesca, Gregory, and Hyacinth. They are in upper class English society, which is also known as the ton. And these are people that are from nobility, gentry, or royalty. And like, yeah, you're right. We would be the like ladies' handmaid or whatever.
I would love to be a lady's maid though, for like a nice family. That sounds like a great time.
Like you just kind of like do their hair. I know I'm getting canceled already. They're like, no, you're like taking out their like buckets of like pee or whatever, but like
the housemaid, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, do some French braiding and call it a day.
No, literally, like I just want to put the rouge on my lady's face and call it. Put on her diamonds and send her out to a party. Yeah. And it's the top of the season. So the season, it runs from late January to early July, and this is when Parliament reopens in London, and there's a season of social entertainment. Where families with children of marriage age would use this time to present their children to possible suitors, because obviously arranging a profitable marriage is good for the family. So we meet Anthony, the eldest son, and he's having a drink with an old friend, which is Simon. So like I was kind of confused about this because it seemed like they were 28. They had met in college when they were in the early 20s, and then this is like 6 years later. Mm-hmm. So kind of a little bit of an age gap, because Daphne is not 28.
No, I think she's maybe 20 or 21 in the book.
Okay.
There are age gaps in the series.
Right.
They almost shrink the age gaps in the show to make it, I think, maybe a little more palatable.
Yeah.
But in this time, these men like are not ready to settle down. Like they are not settling down until their late 20s at the earliest, early 30s. It's like not expected for them. Like they are supposed to be sowing their wild oats so that they can respect their wives when they get to that point.
I hate this so much. Like it's like,
I know. Like
it's so bothersome, but like, no, I get it. So Simon's like recounting that he just got back from London. He was traveling abroad, but his dad passed away. So he was like able to come back to like clean up all the affairs and attend Lady Danbury's ball, which is his godmother, which is, you know, obviously a huge part of the TV series. And you know, they're rakes. They're considered, both of them are like kind of considered like very eligible bachelors. Simon kind of has like a reputation of being a little bit arrogant, but we learned that his arrogance is just because he pauses to speak so he doesn't stutter.
I know, it's like so sweet almost.
I know.
And he's like, well, I'm not gonna correct them. Like,
Totally.
I'll let them think that.
That he's like a haughty, yeah, like arrogant asshole, like kind of love. They attend Lady Danbury's ball, and we meet some of the other brothers, Benedict and Colin. And yeah, again, like the Bridgertons obviously like high status, and that they're like hot, and that, you know, girls want to court them or form an attachment with them or whatever.
They're not ready for that. None of the Bridgerton boys are willing.
They want to go to
make that happen.
White's, and they want to get drunk and like do debaucherous stuff at brothels. Like,
They sure do.
so enter Simon, and he hears a couple breaking up in like a hallway, and he goes to save the girl, quote unquote, and she like witnesses Daphne punching this man, Nigel Burbrook, who is like way older than her and trying to like win her hand in marriage. And he doesn't know that it's Antony's younger sister, Daphne.
I forgot about this moment because it had been a while since I had read the book. And it was kind of a fun entrance to her because she seems so much more like exciting than your typical debutante. And the show also, are we going to talk about the show like later or like alongside?
We can do both.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
Because like Nigel is looked to be way more nefarious in the show than in the book. Like in the book, he's more of just kind of like a bumbling idiot, and that kind of continues throughout the series. But in the show, he seems like a rapist. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like so fucking creepy. And yeah, this is the thing about Daphne that, at least again in my limited knowledge, that makes me really like this book compared to other Regency novels, is because the way that her relationship is with her brothers and her family, and like the way that she, like, I know especially in the TV show, they're like always hitting the nail over, or like beating a dead horse about marriage, like the best foundation is friendship and all of this stuff, but it's like this is like truly what they develop, and you get to see their like really fun interactions throughout the book. So they meet, and she goes like, "Who are you?" And he says, "My intention was to be your rescuer, but it's clear that is not needed." And he's just like, "Oh my god, this girl is like so hot." Like he like literally can't even listen to what she's saying because he's so like overcome with her beauty. Yeah.
Which is like so funny to me because like one of the favorite like through lines throughout the series is like how much every Bridgerton looks exactly alike. So I'm like, does he want to make out with Antony too?
Probably. No, that's so true. Which it's like a little bit downplayed in the TV series, but like in the books, it's like they have the same chestnut, like thick hair and like the same eyes and all of this stuff. That's like what they're known for, is like looking similar and like having, you know, a huge brood of children. So I don't know, this is like a really cute moment. He like thinks she's gonna like swoon over him, but she knows.
Grow up, Simon.
No, I know. I was like, okay, but like she's like, no, I like know about you, and you're a rake, which is like again like a bachelor that doesn't want to settle down. And they decide to help Nigel up from his current condition on the floor, and they're talking about like how they can get him out to a carriage without making things look sus. But then like Nigel like kind of gets up and like pushes Daphne into the wall, and they're like, okay, we'll just like fucking leave him there, like let's just go back to the ball, like we don't need to help this man out. And the whole thing about Simon at these balls is that he doesn't want marriage. So meaning he doesn't want all these women being thrown at him, because in his heart he has made a vow, because he hated his father so much, that he will never, you know, get married or have kids and pass down his family name. Brutal vow to make in like a time of grief. So
brutal. Yeah, so brutal.
But when he goes to these balls, like all these girls are approaching him with their mamas who are like trying to make a match for their daughters. So like we meet the Featheringtons, who of course is Prudence, Philippa, and Penelope. Also huge characters in the TV series. When Lady Featherington is like, hey, like, are you gonna ask my daughters to dance or something like that? He's like, I can't actually, I'm dancing with Daphne. So they go and have a little dance. Would you be good at Regency era dances?
No. No. Whenever they talk about like the grace and light, not me. I've never been graceful for a single second in my entire existence.
No, literally. That's how I want to imagine myself again, being one of these girls at the ball. But it's like, no, I'm the, again, hard, like many people have said that I'm not a light walker. Like I am behind the scenes preparing the like canapes or whatever.
Yeah, I'm like at the lemonade table.
Yeah.
And like all of the choreography they have to like learn and have just ready to rumble and know what songs go with what choreography. It's not happening for me. It's just not.
Totally, 100%. I will say though, as an anxiety girl, I do like the concept of the booklets on the wrist.
You know where you're going to be all night.
No, literally, it's like there's no surprises. You just write the man who you're dancing with in your little booklet. And you also have a really easy excuse if someone asks you to dance and you hate them.
Yeah, cards full.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, sir. Whatever. Like, sorry, Your Grace. So they're dancing, and he proposes a deal with her. They would form a fake attachment. So because he has to go to all these balls, he doesn't want all these girls thrown at him. And Daphne's mother is like, again, trying to get her into a good marriage. So if they spend time together, he alleges that suitors will be jealous and view her more as a potential marriage candidate, and girls won't approach him because they know he's taken. So it's a win-win for both of them, and she accepts. I was kind of like, do you think that this is actually a solid plan? Because would suitors actually be jealous if they were spending time together? Because Daphne is like always complaining in the book that people view her as a friend versus like a romantic partner. So does it really just take a man like quote unquote looking at you in a different way for this to like
It does, especially like a Duke like looking at Daphne, because in the book they go really hard on the fact that like this is Daphne's second season and she hasn't had any luck because people like her, but they don't see her as a romantic partner. They see her as a friend. In the show, obviously, she is the diamond of the first water, and like everybody. So I feel like this plot line makes way more sense in the book than it does in the show.
Yes, because
in the show it's like, oh, you're
she's
the hottest
despy.
one.
Yeah,
You, like pick anyone. Like anyone wants to be with you. Where in the book it makes way more sense why they go with this plan. God, yeah, and I do think it is a smart plan on their part.
Okay, I like this. Okay, so of course they have to like make this ruse look real. So the next day Simon calls on Daphne, and like the plan is working. She has tons of suitors calling on her. Would you want to be called on if you were in Daphne's shoes?
Yeah, I want people to like me all the time.
Yeah. I want people to bring me gifts. Like,
I love flowers.
Yeah.
I want people to tell me to my face that I'm hot. Like, it does sound nice. Although, like, making small talk with everyone would be a hurdle for me.
Yeah.
The fact that there'd be so many flowers around would really balance that out.
Totally. And you can talk about what like books you're reading, because that's what they always talk about. They're like, the topics are like, what books are you reading? What are you playing on the piano? What dances are you practicing? And like stuff like that.
Like, I wonder what my Regency era skill would have been.
Yeah.
Because like I have no musical ability whatsoever. Yeah. I could probably embroider. Like I probably like that, or like do some watercolors. But like any of the music.
No, literally, I'm not playing the piano forte.
No.
So they like, their relationship is like flirty, and it's like play arguing and stuff like that. It's very cute. She's teasing him about being a rake and stuff like that. And he's like, oh my God, this girl can like keep up with me. This is different from other girls that I've talked to.
She's not like other girls.
She's not like other girls. And one kind of hole in their plot and their scheming is that Anthony is gonna be pissed. So he like enters the room and he's like, I fucking know you from school. You're a pig. You don't deserve my sister at all. And like there's no reason that you need to be courting her. And then so they actually tell Anthony about the scheme, which also differs from the TV show because that obviously is like one of the like big cinematic things. But he's like, there's no way that this is going to work or that I will let this happen. The Duke comes over for dinner at the Bridgertons, and this is also one of the sweetest parts about the series is that because he's an only child, because he didn't have parents growing up and, you know, he was just with adults all day, when he's viewing the Bridgertons and their casualness and them eating dinner as a family and like Hyacinth throwing peas at Gregory and stuff like that, he's like, this is really fun and I really enjoy this, and like I'm sad that this wasn't how my childhood was.
Yeah, and it makes you feel for him. And I feel like you really do understand why Simon is the way that he is, even if I don't agree with how he goes about things. It's like, it was of the time, and like that, you know, it's hard to blame him almost because you're like, yeah, I get it.
Totally. Like, even take out the revenge part of it, like against his father, it makes sense why he wouldn't want a family and stuff like that, because he's so scared that he would pass on this impediment to his kid, and he's like, I don't want them to grow up like I grew up and stuff like that. So like, and it's all he's ever known. He hasn't experienced, like, he lived in the countryside alone. He was like tutored in his house and stuff by like a nurse or whatever. He's not like going to his neighbor's house and seeing how their family is and changing his mind. It's like truly he doesn't know any better. So it does really make sense. I think the part that starts getting a little sticky is when he's like not changing his mind when he sees stuff that's different, but
and also like not communicating it.
Yeah,
like
not
that's one of my least favorite tropes, is when the issue could just be solved by talking to each other. And I get it, like that's not the point of books, etc., etc. But like, just literally say it out loud. Just say it out loud.
No, 100%. That actually kills me so much, and it's so realistic though, because people just can't be vulnerable or like don't want to be vulnerable or whatever, or like view that as embarrassing. But that pisses me off so much when it's like, if you literally just said something, like things would be cleared up. I hate when books like hinge on that. But Daphne is explaining to Simon at one point, like, this is what I want for my life too. Like, yes, I want a husband for sure, but really it's like I want children and like a big family. She can't imagine her life being any different. I guess just like how Simon can't imagine his being any different. She's like, oh my God, like, sorry, like, you're an only child. Like, I didn't mean for that to offend you, because he looks like fucking dead and like he looks clearly upset when she's explaining how much she like loves her family, and she notices that subject is touchy for him. I don't know, it's very, very sad, but she's so loving and caring that's why they make so much sense, because she hears him and sees him in this way and like still loves him regardless. Oh my God, it's very cute.
He just can't get out of his own way.
No, he truly can't. He needs therapy. Like,
he needs therapy.
Yeah. So they keep going to social events, and like Daphne is like starting to forget that their courtship is fake, which again would be me. Like, she's like, oh,
I'm in love.
Yeah, she's like, oh fuck, I forgot this was fake. Yeah, she like begins to fall in love with him, and their relationship kind of reaches like a boiling point where she is like wants to pursue him in a way that is inappropriate for women of this time. So I think what happens here is another duke interrupts them having a conversation, and he's like, I have some letters for you from your dad. And Simon's like, don't need those. I hate my dad, in so little words. And he goes outside, and the Duke ends up giving the letters to Daphne because he notes that, that's an important person in Simon's life. She goes out to comfort him.
Where do you think she's storing these letters? Like, you think the dresses are that big that she can just, like, tuck them in somewhere?
She doesn't have pockets or anything.
No, I don't understand that part.
No, that's a good point. And their purses, like, tiny. I guess they're called purses, or, like, little handbags. Like, they're, like, little satchels. I don't know. It's teensy tiny.
Have you seen, it was pretty recent, Nor, like, the, Bouillon Cube company did like a social media campaign where they had like these tiny little purses that could only fit one Bouillon Cube. That's what I picture them carrying around.
It's truly like that, because at this time, do they even have like to-go cosmetics?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So what would you even carry in the purse? I guess your list of men that you need to dance with.
Or, yeah, but that's tied to your wrist. You don't need that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'd put, like, one single eclair in there if I get started.
Yeah. Because you don't even need a house key because you have servants to open your doors. So, like...
What a life.
So, yeah, Daphne's consoling Simon. And he notices that as they're talking, she eases his tension. And he's, like... shook to his core because, like, again, he doesn't have a person in his life that really does this. And they're starting to talk about other things like the stars, and because he had just traveled around and she has never been outside of like the English countryside, he's telling her about how the stars look different in the southern hemisphere. Is this true?
Yes, but I wonder how much different it, like, the sky obviously looks different based on where you are. Like, the sky and I would look at are different. Just based on where we were. From like, if it's completely different in like Australia or like Argentina, because like it's a different tropic. Like, you are looking at different stars. I think science, not my jam. But it would be different. I don't know if it would be extremely different if he's in North Africa versus England. That I'm not super sure about. I think it would be slightly shifted, but I don't know if it would be like completely different.
Yeah, because he goes to the West Indies and I think Northern Africa.
Which is like along a similar line of latitude.
Yeah.
So like those would be...
similar, right?
But I'm trying to think, because they're on like different sides of the globe. Now I'm trying, but because you're shifting, I don't know. I didn't take astronomy in university.
Yeah, neither did I. So she's like, I know I should want to travel. Like, I want to be an adventurous, like, independent woman. I want to be the type of woman that men write poetry about. And he says, you are the type of woman men write poetry about.
Girl.
Lock this man down. And she like kind of goads him to following her into the garden because she knows that they can like be alone, like properly alone for the first time. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, we can't do this. Like, your honor and stuff like that. Like,
she's like, I don't care about my honor. I just want to make out with you. Like, let me be.
Literally, it's so funny. And he's like, I promised Anthony, like, I would treat you well. And, like, I don't go back on my promises and stuff like that. And he's like, don't do this. Like it's something that, like, is so, like, it's so funny because he's like, don't walk into the garden. Like,
because I will follow you.
And I will kiss you. Like, there's, there's no greater, it's like she's committing a crime or something like that. And it's so funny. but she's like squaring her body off, like she's fucking ready to go.
Yeah, and she's like, one of these tits is about to be loose. Like, please,
that's another thing. My boobs are too big for this era.
Like the dresses, it would be like, I don't even have that big of boobs, but it would just be like, it would just be like, I'd be risking a nip slip at all times.
No, literally. The dresses that Daphne wears, it's like fucking only for flat-chested bitches. And then like, yeah, if I like had those push-up bras that the older women wear, my boobs would be at my chin. Like it's so unfortunate. No, truly. Yeah, she's getting ready. He presses her up against a hedge.
That doesn't seem like it would work.
It never does, but this is in every like fucking book I've ever read. Like,
as somebody who owns hedges,
yeah,
you would just go back into them. I don't know. Maybe like a nice stone wall or something.
Totally, like a fountain ledge or whatever. And he kisses her, and not like a gentle suitor,
like a rake,
like
a capital R.
And she's like, oh my god, like
we're in love.
This has like changed my life. Yeah. But of course, Anthony, who I always want to call Anthony, finds them, and they kind of get into a little bit of a
with
tussle.
her tit out. You're glossing over the fact that her tit out.
No, literally, because I want to protect her.
I know, but you can't.
I know.
And Anthony's like, "Is that a boob?
No,
put it away."
Literally, her dress fully rips down the front. Her boob is out, and the worst part, then she falls into some brambles, and she's just sitting there, but she can't move because she doesn't want to get tangled up in these like, I don't know. I imagined like rose bushes or something like that.
I feel like I would rather get tangled in that than have my boob out.
No, literally. I know. I was like, I would risk it.
I don't know. No.
I would risk it all. And so they're like punching each other and stuff like that. And Anthony's like, you have to marry Daphne. Meanwhile, she's like in the bush still. And he's like, okay, like, I can't do that. So the only other option is a duel.
and Daphne's like, okay, you'd literally rather die than be with me? Like, I could not survive that. Daphne is a stronger woman than I.
No, and she's like, no, I'll just like keep pursuing this. I was like, I would have left the country by now. Like, she's like, I'll just go stop the duel. I would have been running into the street and hoping a horse and like carriage hits me. Like, over, yeah. No, literally.
Not a chance I'm surviving that embarrassment.
Totally,
I mean, like, it's a real 2-for-1 of, like, my boob being out and being rejected in front of my brother. No, that's over. It is game over.
Yeah, you flash your brother your boob. You, like, look like a dummy because you one boob's out and you're in, like...
in brambles. And the love of your life is like, no, you can shoot me so I don't have to marry her.
Yeah.
I mean, look at her right now. Would you marry someone like that? She's embarrassing. She's stuck in brambles.
Again, this would be my end. Like, oh my god. That's so fucking sad. I will say... He does help her. He does.
Okay, but
yeah.
I will not marry you. I'd rather die, but let me get you out of the rose bush so at least you were even.
Yeah, literally. So the duel is the next day at dawn or whatever. It's like illegal, so it's like secret. And Colin helps Daphne figure out where the location is. And like is like, I need your help. I love this man and we need to like save him. And the men are at the field. Again, just like the toxic masculinity of a duel. It's just like
truly men grow up.
I know. Like it's,
grow up.
It's so brutal to witness. But Daphne arrives and she's like, this duel isn't happening. Like, we can just get married. And like, again, he's like adamant that he can't and won't marry her. And like, just the gall on this girl again. I'm way too fragile for this. And then she's like, okay, but actually, though I will say, like, even if you're dead, people saw us go out into the garden, and like my social standing and reputation will be sullied. It'll be ruined if you don't just like marry me. So can you like please? She
Suck
actually
it up.
Yeah. She actually says like, Simon, save me, and he's like, okay, fine, I'll marry
But I
you.
can't have children.
Yeah. He's like, here's the thing. Yes, I will save you. Yes, I will get married to you. But I'm so sorry that our lives, like, won't be fulfilled by children. And he explains that he can't have kids medically. And she's like,
No, he doesn't say medically. He just says, I can't have kids, and leaves it at that. I'm going to come for Violet Bridgerton in this one.
yeah.
Because Violet didn't prepare Daphne.
No, truly. No, you're right. She assumes it's medically.
Yeah.
He doesn't say it's medically. He just says, I can't have children. And she's like, oh, that would mean medically, not like philosophy-wise.
He's a Ken doll. That's fine.
Totally. And she's like, no, what? That's fine, because I know you're a good man and our lives will be full regardless. So she's starting to get like stoked on her engagement, which again was a different story in the TV series. I forgot how like upset she was, like even during their wedding ceremony. Like absolutely.
Yeah, in the book, she's like,
yeah.
Like, girl, this man like announced that he was not marrying you.
Yeah, literally. So she's like, yeah, she's stoked. She gets her betrothal ring. They're like a little bit awkward, but she's stoked to be marrying him. The night before the wedding, like you mentioned, Violet gives the sex talk. She tells Daphne about her marital duty when it comes to her husband in bed, and how they perform a distasteful act to like consummate the marriage. But she literally doesn't say anything else. Like, she doesn't even say what it is.
And I have some issues with this, because like for Violet to be like, it's distasteful after she's been glomping on the whole series about, oh, it's so important to love, and like, I loved your father.
Yeah.
And like, I love Daphne being like, so you only did this 8 times, huh? And Violet's, well, like, I can't. I'm mad at Violet for this. Like,
totally.
You set your daughter up to fail by not like giving her a drawing, or just being like, this is what happens. And this is what it's for.
Totally. This is one of the parts that I don't get either, because it is shown that Violet Bridgerton does everything for her family and like wants Daphne to be like successful and stuff like that in this way. And I just don't see her not giving more of an FYI to Daphne at this point.
Just like anything about it. And like all she basically says is like, this is the act that like you have kids, like this, you do this, you have children. And so she's like, well, I guess I don't even have to worry about it, because Simon can't have kids. Like, he doesn't have a penis, like he doesn't have one, so like that's just what it is. Like, I won't get boned ever.
Yeah, that is the funniest part. So you're right, because again, she's so confused at what's happening. She thinks now that when they said that he can't have kids, it's that his like dick doesn't work.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but she learns that's not true, and then so she
learns that's not true,
and then so she's like, what to say what? So anyway, like, okay, we're jumping ahead, but they get married, and she is again excited, and they go to one of his other estates called Clifton Castle, which we see in the TV series, and it's where he grew up. And they rushed, obviously, because they didn't want any rumors about Daphne's reputation to get out there, so they didn't have time to like book a wedding trip or something like this. This is also one of the most brutal things I've ever read on fucking paper.
So embarrassing. I'm like reading it now and getting like
secondhand embarrassment. So like so basically the horse carriage ride is like 3 hours or whatever from London to the countryside, and he fake sleeps because he doesn't want to talk to her, and she knows that he's fake sleeping because she has 7 other siblings, and that's what siblings do when they want to like get out of stuff.
Like, at what point do you just throw yourself out of the carriage?
No, I know, but again, she's like She trucks on. Like,
she's just like, nope, I'm committed to the bit.
yeah. It's so bad. So she's like, okay, I feel like we need to stop at an inn because this is like a 2-day trek or whatever. Like, we can't just get there at midnight. Like, I'm going to be like too tired or whatever. Like, I want to stay overnight at an inn. And he's like, okay, well, like, this is good because I can't like bed her at an inn. But because they didn't book anything, they arrive at the inn and there's only one room. So they can't get separate rooms. So he's like, fuck, like, my plan is being foiled. And I also just love the romance genre. Like, it's so diverse in so many ways, but it's like, we just read A Court of Mist and Fury and they do the in one bed, and it's like, then we have The Duke and I written 25 years ago in one bed. Like,
we've been doing this for a long time,
literally.
And I also love that she's like, no, I want you to fuck me. And he's
Yeah.
like, no, that's okay. And she's like, because you can't, right? Like, that doesn't work. And like, that's the one thing where he's like, the goods work.
Yeah.
I'll show you. Like, that's his breaking point. Like,
no, literally his reputation of being like an eligible bachelor. Yeah, so they like get to the room and she's like, oh, like, I assumed you can't have sex because you told me that you can't have kids. And he's like, okay, but do you actually know what sex is? Like, let's start at that point. And then he's like, I'll show you, which is very cute. And then he like, yeah, like, I guess like changes his mind real quick, like you said. But when they have sex, he ejaculates on the sheets, and he
pulls out. He's a pull-out princess.
We see this like time and time again. But because Daphne doesn't know anything, she doesn't know that that's like quote unquote like weird.
Hear me out. More people in this era should have been using this method.
Also, if you don't have this is getting so gross. Sorry, everybody. Also, if you don't have condoms, I would prefer you to pull out. Like, please. Like, this sounds great. Except for then it's on the sheets and then you're like sleeping. And,
there's too much and they roll over and just like call it a night. Like,
100%. And no, that's so true. And I hate that so much. So she's like fucking stoked because she's like, oh my God, like, I didn't know that sex existed. I didn't know it could be like good also. And like, I don't know, maybe we could fix this little prob that you have. So they arrive at his estate and she's talking to his head housekeeper, Mrs. Coulson, about his childhood. And she learns like so much more about the family, that his mom was really lovely and the parents always wanted kids. She felt so bad when her mom kept, quote unquote, like getting her courses. And she says like how Simon worked so hard to improve himself to impress his father, but every time he would like try to prove his father wrong, he just like wouldn't accept him as his child. And Daphne didn't know any of this. Obviously it was hinted, but the detail, she didn't even know that he had a speech impediment. So she's like, oh my God, like, this is really, really sad and like something that I wish I could save him from, basically. And Mrs. Coulson is saying about like basically how kids are made is basically what she's telling Daphne. And it's like, yeah, where were you, Violet Bridgerton? At least Mrs. Coulson has the balls.
And I like how they did this in the show. Like, she goes to her lady maid and she's like, girly girl, you just gotta tell me the mechanics of this. Like, what is it? What's the thing? And the girl's like, okay, let's go here.
Yeah. No, that I liked that part too. So she realizes what has been happening because every single time they have sex, he spills his seed on the bed. So she approaches Simon and she's so mad at him. She's like, you took advantage of my stupidity. It's not that you can't have children. It's that you don't want to. And she's like, I know everything about your dad and like your family life. And he's like, oh my God. So they like fully like part ways at this time. And like, I actually didn't remember when I was thinking about, because like, of course I watched season 1 in 2020 and then I didn't watch it again till now. I forgot how like they really break up for like a lot. Like they are like broken
like,
up for like months.
Too.
Yes, yeah. Like it was like serious. Like I really brushed over that. But basically she's like, I don't want to sleep in the same bedroom as you anymore. Like I'll be over in the Duchess chambers and you can be over there. And he goes out and gets like absolutely obliterated, like just so fucking drunk. And he goes to Daphne's room and he's like yelling after her, like, Daphne, like, are you there? And stuff like that. She's like, okay, you can like stay in my bed. Cause he's like, can you just stay with me the night? Like blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's very sad. He's like, you know, upset about his father. She's saying like, no, you won against him. Like you're a successful man. Like having this vow that you won't have kids, like is just hurting yourself. It's not making you like win against your dead dad. And this is like this is the toughest part of the book.
Very much the toughest. And it almost in 2024 makes the book genuinely unreadable.
No, literally, I was like, should I be like promoting this? No, literally, because also and we'll talk about this, they don't change it in the fucking TV show.
No.
So, yeah, it's fucking brutal. Like, so basically, just in case you actually didn't read the book and are just here for the TV talk, Simon's drunk, but he wakes up partially. Like, you know, when you're in like it's like, he's still asleep though. Like, let's not get that mixed up either. Like he's
still loaded too.
Yeah,
like
he's drunk.
Still.
He's like in that like dozing phase or whatever where you're like, yeah, half awake, half asleep. But his dick is hard. And she's like, oh my God, again, because she knows nothing. She's like, I didn't know that can happen when you're like not like having sex and stuff like that. And then she's like, oh my God, like I can
use this to my advantage.
Yes. And so she starts having sex with him. Like she goes on top and he's like moaning and stuff like that.
Yeah, he like wakes up and is into it, but also still drunk.
yes. And like you still started having sex with him when he was like asleep. So it's not consensual. So he like is like, oh my God, you've like never been on top before, like blah, blah, blah. Like they're enjoying it. But because he was so out of it, he realizes like, because he's just like past the point of return, he's gonna come and he can't stop, like flip her over and pull out or anything like that. And at the same time, he's realizing that she planned this. So obviously he's so upset and he leaves. And she's upset because she's like, I hurt this person that I love. And she's like, can't remember at the time. She's like, was this, like, did I take advantage of him? Was this by accident? Like, what happened? Like, it went by in such a blur that I just, like, don't remember. He doesn't come back. Like, he literally, like, 2 months pass and they don't see each other. He sends her a letter that's like, if you get pregnant from that time, like, give me an FYI. But, like, if not, basically don't.
Yeah, and he's like, marriage, like, as you know, it is over. And, like, we'll live separate lives and, like, be married in name only. And if you have a kid, like, I'll take care of it. But, like, we
like,
are
money-wise, but, like,
like,
we're not like gonna be together in that way. And so she goes back to London. She's like, her family's trying to cheer her up. She sends him a letter being like, I'm pregnant. And so he races to London, even though it takes him like 2 days. And he's like, I need to find her. And then he goes to the estate and he's like, which I think is still his estate because he's like fucking rich. And he's like, where's Daphne? And the staff's like, she's out riding. And he's like, pregnant women can't ride horses, babe.
Yeah, even they knew that then. Like,
yeah.
Out of all the things they didn't know, they knew that.
Totally. So she's like, oh my God. So he like races after to find her. And then she's like, oh my God, someone's chasing me. She falls off. And then he like catches up with her, takes care of her. And he's like, oh my God, like, is the baby okay? And stuff like that. And she's like, sorry, there's actually no baby. I thought I was pregnant, but then I got my courses, so I'm not pregnant, but I had already sent the letter. And I was like, yeah, this would suck. Like, if you didn't have text message or whatever, like, you couldn't call him up. And he's like, no, I realized with your letter and you falling off this horse that I want you back. I'm so sorry. And she's like, yeah, like, if you have a child, again, you win because you get to change the story. You get to be kind and accepting to your kid no matter what they're like. So they get back together.
Yeah, like they have a really interesting conversation like a little bit earlier where they're arguing about it, and like, you know, Simon kind of lets loose of like, no, like I've made this promise to myself because I hate my father so much, like I can't let him win. And she's like, no, you let him win every time you do something out of spite. Like even in the bedroom when you're supposed to like be with me, you're thinking about him every time you pull out.
Yeah.
And he's just like, you don't know, you're a lady girl.
That was actually like a solid point for her argument, though.
Very.
Like,
this was before the sexual assault scene, so
totally, because he's like, no, like I've been nothing but good to you, and like hating my father doesn't really affect our relationship in that way if we remain childless. And he's like, no, because like literally there's 3 people in our bed, you, me, and the dad, because every time,
the dead dad,
yeah, every time you finish, you're not thinking of me, you're thinking of your dad, which is like, again, solid point, girly.
Mm-hmm.
So they go back to the house and they're like, okay, the one hurdle we have to get over at this point is just the brothers, because you have productive brothers and they're probably mad at me. And they're like, they are mad, especially Anthony.
Yeah, I think Anthony is the one who like went and got him and it was like, get over here.
Totally. Which he like, again, like didn't even really listen to. And they're like, okay, if you can like admit that you love her, then like we will accept your marriage. And I was like, at this point I was like, oh yeah, they haven't even said I love you to each other. Like it's
Regency romance.
It's so fucking funny. And he's like, gulp. But he pulls her aside and he's like, I do love you. And then they have like sex a million other times. And he decides he wants to. It's so funny that the book hinges. It's like, how do they like move on from this? It's like he just comes inside her.
Yeah, it's wild that this book is just central to ejaculation.
No, it's so crazy.
Like it's
once you start talking about it aloud. No, I know. This whole fucking story just hinges on where he finishes.
Oh boy, you are. Ooh, it is not something I thought about.
Yeah, fuck, it's so
I try
funny.
not to think about it.
No, me neither. And then, yeah, she gives him the letters. I don't even remember what was in the letters, but basically they're just...
No, that's the point, because they were so boring. They were just like, well, you gotta make sure that this person does this and this person does this. And like, Simon's like, oh, all those people are dead now anyway. Like, it does not matter.
Yeah, he's just like, I've moved on and I'm entering this new era of my life. And then we get an epilogue because they live HEA, and we get an epilogue, and they've had 4 kids at this point, 3 girls and a boy, Amelia, Belinda, Caroline, and David. Lovely. There's a second epilogue. I haven't read it yet.
Okay, maybe don't until you read all of the book.
Okay, yes. Because we can talk about this later, but just that Julia Quinn released 8 epilogues, like second epilogues for all the Bridgerton siblings.
And they like spoil
what
happens in other books, so leave it until you read all of them.
No, that's smart. So, okay, let's get into like our like discussion, even though I feel like we've discussed a lot of this. Let's get into internet investigation. This is our cursory peruse of the internet of things you need to know. This was really interesting to me. Julia Quinn was at Yale in med school when she found out that 2 of her novels, because she was just like a hobby author, were sold to fucking Avon Books in an auction. And so she's like, no, fuck it. I'm dropping out of med school and I'm going to become an author.
Yeah, like good for her. It's funny. It never occurred to me to like look into this woman's life at all.
Me neither, really, until this point. I thought this was fun for you and I, but in 2001, she won $79,000 on The Weakest Link.
That's crazy.
Bring back that show.
I love it.
And then in the book, this just shows you, this is something I love about romance novels, is when they have interconnected books. But in the book, Simon briefly mentions Lady Danbury's nephew, Riverdale, which is a full other series about James Sidwell, Marquis of Riverdale.
Julia Quinn does a really cool job of like overlaying her different series. So like the Bridgerton one is obviously the most popular. There's also like the Smith Smythe series, which takes place a little bit after like what this would be, but it lines up with another one of the Bridgerton books. What is it? The Rokesby ones are like not way long ago, but like the Bridgerton's dad was like in this family.
Oh,
like
right,
we don't get
right.
his prequel, but we like talk about the neighbors or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's like another little side series that also like connects in. So they're all kind of like happening in the same world, like along the same timelines. Like I find it really cool that we're getting like all the different perspectives of like the same events, basically.
Yeah, I really, really like that part. Okay, our wonder whys, these are unanswered questions for the listeners. My unanswered questions are just like, why in these style of books does a touch of a hand feel like sex or better than sex? Like when he just like touches like the back of her like elbow in one of the balls, like, I was like screaming.
Yeah, I know, because like that was like immodest to do that. Like you can't even say her like first name. Like she is Miss Bridgerton to you, sir.
That's so true. Let's get back to those. Like I don't want men to be addressing me by my first name.
No.
Which brings me to like my second part of just like, why do we like yearn? And I guess it's not really an unanswered question. It's like, why do we yearn for a time like this? It's because they lived in walkable neighborhoods. they didn't have like chores, and they could just pursue their hobbies, and they had other pressures, but I don't know, the crippling cost of living I guess didn't matter to these folks.
Oh gosh, no, they're rich.
Yeah. Okay, our gripes and grumbles. These are nitpicky problems we have with the book. Okay, this was like the only one that I could really think of, other than it hinges on ejaculation, and that's like fucking weird. There's so many times where Simon gets punched in the face early, like multiple times. Nigel, I think, like Anthony, I think even Daphne.
Yeah, like like this on my second read of this book, I was like, is Daphne violent? Because she knows multiple people.
No, seriously. And it's like talked about like at the duel, like he's showing up with like 2 black eyes and like a swollen chin or something like that. And I'm like, okay, then they get married like 3 days later or 2 weeks later or whatever. His face is gonna look fucked. Like it's gonna be like brown.
Like, or yellow and
green bruises. So that pisses me off. Our sequel scoop. This is the tea on any upcoming sequel seasons and the general reception. So obviously there was a huge boost in sales and ratings of the book when the TV show came out in 2020. And as I mentioned before, there's a second epilogue in the Bridgertons called The Bridgertons Happily Ever After. And the next book in the series is The Viscount Who Loved Me, which also was published in 2000 and tells Antony's story.
And it's easily my favorite book in the series.
I know. You've sold me on reading it next. No offense, I wasn't going to. No, okay. I'm going to read it, and then we can cover season 2.
Yeah, I know that's the plan.
Okay.
I just invited myself here.
Okay, perfect.
And then we're going to read book 4 and then do Colin's series. Like, I thought that's what we were leading up to. I thought we were doing one per month until
No, we are. Before May 16th, we have to cover, Queen Charlotte and season 2 and
I'm there.
The book.
I'm
okay,
available.
Good. Okay, perfect.
I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm like the person Torry will always come to talk about Bridgerton. We've got a couple of things to talk. Like, I'm like, okay, great. Like, I'll make sure I have some time available in my calendar for this. Yeah,
perfect. Okay, no, I'm down for that. Okay, I love that. Let's talk about the TV show. I wanted to talk about this so bad. I obviously streamed on Netflix. It was a Shonda Rhimes production, so fucking huge budget. Obviously, like, she is Netflix's queen. She's ABC's queen. She's just like killing it for, 2 decades now. And it was released on Christmas Day of 2020. And let me tell you, this actually saved I don't think I would have liked it as much if this didn't come out on Christmas Day in 2020. I was in Victoria. My parents did not live here. They lived in Kamloops, which was my hometown. So me and my sister are spending Christmas together in Victoria. Like, no gifts. We live in apartments, so like, not really a tree or anything. So we are like so depresso.
I'm getting depressed hearing about it.
No, it was like, it was
love
dark.
in my heart.
No, I know. Like we were like FaceTiming our family on Christmas, like, because again, it was just us and you couldn't travel at this time. So what did we do? We binged this entire series. Like, I think I watched it on Christmas in one sitting. I was like obviously obsessed with it for that reason. It has some notable members. There's Phoebe Dynevor, I don't know, whatever, who plays Daphne Bridgerton. She was also in Younger with Hilary Duff.
Oh, was she really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I like her. She comes in the later seasons. There's Regé-Jean Page, who is Simon Bassett. There's Jonathan Bailey as Anthony Bridgerton. Nicola Coughlan as Penelope Featherington. Adjoa Andoh as Lady Danbury, who, reprises her role in Queen Charlotte. And Julie Andrews, who is Lady Whistledown's voice, which is so perfect. Like, it's so good.
I really think they did such a fantastic job in this series, and I feel like people want to criticize it because it's a piece of media made for women, and they just like want to find issues with it, where I think they did so many things well. I think bringing a diverse cast into it and like, putting the spin on like a historical mystery, which was that Queen Charlotte like was suspected to have some African lineage, and so to really like play on that and have the Ton really open up to different faces and different races is really interesting. And I feel like they do such a wonderful job of just like making it normal almost, and being like, and there's like mentions of it, it's like, this wasn't possible for us like in short history or whatever. But I think it just is so brilliant and so beautifully done that it's like, okay, other shows, you could also be doing this. I think the costuming is incredible, and it might not be like
so good.
It might not be perfect to like what it was in the times, but I don't care. Like, any of the people who are like, well, it's not historically accurate. No, I don't give a shit. It's beautiful. The hair is incredible. Like the like sets are so gorgeous.
So beautiful.
Like, it's such an aesthetically beautiful show.
Totally. And I don't give a fuck, because it's like, we have Pride and Prejudice. Like, we've seen the like dresses and stuff. We've seen the simple hair.
Yeah, I don't need it to be so historically accurate. Like, it's a TV product. Like, I want it to be visually like exciting.
Absolutely, 100%. Couldn't agree more. And yeah, the costuming that you mentioned was incredible. And you can tell, like, again, because it was a Shonda production, that they just started off with a big budget, even though this was the first season, because they costumed, I think I wrote this down, but it was like over 500 people, and there was like over 2,000 costumes or whatever, because they were talking about when this was made that in a lot of like ball scenes in like big productions, the women wear like the same dresses basically, because when they're background people, because, or like very similar, because of money. But they made every single character, whether you just pass them once in the ball, like a unique dress and stuff like that, to really capture what it would look like. And like, that's just incredible.
And they like had some cool like Easter eggs in those costumes. Like the Featheringtons had a specific color palette, which like it did reflect the novels. Like, it, we kind of hit on that. And we see that with the Bridgertons, they have these like really beautiful blues and light purples and like harmonious colors almost. And we'll see it in the second season too. And we'll kind of see like how the costumes transition.
Yes.
Along with the storyline. Yeah.
Totally. Also, I noticed that in the start of the season, Daphne is wearing light blue, and at the end of the season, she's wearing dark blue, like a more mature color and stuff like that, less like baby. And so I was like, oh, this is like so smart.
And also, the music is so good. Like, I will live like if I need sound, but I can't have like
same.
Words,
oh my god.
This is the playlist, because it's like, I love a pop hit done in classical music style. Like,
Me too.
the version of Wildest Dreams of like the orchestral is just so stunning.
No, I listen to that all the time. When it came on the show last night, I was fucking dancing and singing. The Thank You Next cover is so fucking good.
So good.
And
so good.
I listen to this all the time too, especially when, again, Christmas 2020. It was like, I just put on the quartet, you know, versions of these songs. And like, it's just such good background music when you need to focus and you can't have any lyrics or anything. It's so good. Okay, you talked about the colorblind casting. So let's just talk about that for a little bit, because it has had mixed reviews. Some people really, really like it, and some people really don't like it. So
I want to know, the people who don't like it, what's the reason?
okay, I will tell you, because I have that.
Okay.
So, as you mentioned before, it was inspired because Queen Charlotte is believed to be a mixed-race woman. And so a lot of people hailed this as really progressive because we don't see Black and brown people in a lot of Regency pieces. But a lot of people also said that it's like denying the reality of racism, which is true. It's kind of touched on in the show. Lady Danbury and Simon have a conversation about Queen Charlotte and King George, but it's not super explored outside of that conversation.
Sure.
And this is the other piece. People of color want to see themselves in Regency pieces, and actors want to act. Like, how fucking shitty would that be that, like, okay, so just what, like,
we're doing a remake of Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
No brown people apply. Like, that's, like, for what reason? And, like, I get it, historical. Like, but this, like, we have gone so far outside of, like, historically accurate in Bridgerton.
No, totally. Especially with the music and the costumes, just like what you said. Also, that was inspired by A Knight's Tale, the 2001 Heath Ledger movie or whatever, which is iconic because they use rock songs like We Will Rock You in the movie, and they do non-historically accurate like things like their dress and stuff like that. And so they kind of took from that, which I love. People also say these eras are already being romanticized because, again, we're seeing the good parts of, like, when we would want to go back there, when in reality we know that we actually don't. And then from the other side also, though, it says, like, race changes context. For example, in the sexual assault scene, which I want to talk about a little bit more, a white woman forcing a Black man to finish inside of her, with the larger context of racism and how white women often wrongly accuse Black men for sexual assault, as well as the fetishization and over-sexualization of Black men, make it, like, you know, obviously so much worse and so much more damaging because there are already harmful stereotypes of Black men being aggressive, sexually aggressive, animalistic, always wanting to have sex with, like, a submissive white woman, which obviously leads to, you know, racism, the surveillance of Black bodies, etc.
I can totally understand where those points are coming from, but are we just going to eliminate those conversations and say only white people in this?
I know. It's like, what's the path forward then?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they knew at the time, but maybe they know now because we've had more colorblind series like The Buccaneers and like Hamilton and stuff like that. So maybe someone a lot smarter than me and a lot more appropriate to talk about this has an idea.
And it's, like, interesting to have the conversations come up where you go, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that. But It's also, like, you can't be so afraid to have the conversations and see, like, oh, like, why that might not work, to, like, eliminate them, to eliminate having like a diverse cast where people are going to enjoy seeing people who look like them on screen
100%.
And to see themselves as desirable and like have people like want somebody who looks like them and make them so sexy. And like there is a balance and nothing is ever going to be perfect.
Totally. I even saw Avantika, who plays Karen Shetty in the Mean Girls movie, the 2024 version. She was talking about how the first time she saw herself really depicted in TV was Bridgerton season 2. I think the other piece about that is like season 2, we get a lot more of Kate and Edwina's backstory and culture and stuff like that, versus in season 1, it's like brushed over, or like the people of color aren't speaking to their own culture and perspectives and lives, I guess, as we see in season 2. So I'm assuming that like it gets better from here. But yeah, the conversation isn't that we can't have people of color in these pieces. Like, could you imagine? And that I doubt that's what obviously Shonda Rhimes wanted.
Yeah.
As someone with, I think, some of the most diverse casting in the like TV landscape. Can we talk about the sexual assault thing and then we can move on to some of the lighter bits of this?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Just because why didn't they change it? They had 20 years of context and realization that this is bad, and they still didn't change it for the TV series. I think actually the TV series was worse than the book, because in the book she has remorse, like way more, like is like, fuck, what did I just do? I really hurt this person. Where in the TV show you like don't even really get that. They put the betrayal of Simon lying to Daphne about not being able to have kids as the pinnacle problem versus like Daphne's doing something non-consensual.
Yeah, and I was really surprised when I watched the show that they kept, out of all things, to keep true to the book, that's the one you choose.
Literally.
It's just like, I don't know, and I'd be curious to know if like Julia Quinn regrets that storyline or like plot device.
I think so too. So I don't think she does. Again, when I was doing some half-ass internet research, she kind of talks about how at the time, again, if this was 1812, it like doesn't seem as bad, or like that's her mindset or whatever. And I was like, I don't, that doesn't like absolve the character or anything. And also like, okay, but it's not 1812. Like, I don't think you were writing this in 2000. Like, I don't know. It's tough. I just think like, why couldn't, like, they did so many changes in the TV series, which we can talk about, but they didn't change that. And they could have done it where it's like, they have that argument that he doesn't, like, he ejaculates into the sheets, and then like, couldn't they just use another plot device to get them to the point of like him accepting that he wanted to have kids? Like, even his relationships with Gregory and Hyacinth, like being fun and stuff like that, couldn't that have been like the change or something?
And it's like, it's interesting because the second season really diverts from the book in a way where it's almost not the same story. That like, oh, you couldn't have done that here. Like, you couldn't have, like, you, like, I don't want to hear the argument of like, well, like, we had to because like you have to get from here to here and that's how we do it. Like, I don't know, man.
It's so brutal. And it got shit. Like, the reception, not good. Like, not good for that scene. So that's like fair. Okay, let's talk about some of the differences between the book and the movie. Antony's introduction is him having sex with Sienna against the tree. That like truly has to be, I think, one of the best introductions to a character we've ever seen.
I forgot like how quickly we got into like, oh, this show we see butts.
Yeah, like truly. It seemed so scandalous, the sex scenes. I guess just because they were on Netflix.
Yeah.
They still seem scandalous.
I mean, yeah, because we're prudes.
Yeah. Literally. Obviously, there's a lot more just like of the side character stories, because in the book, it's like literally just Daphne and Simon.
Yeah, you get those two perspectives, and I think it's really fun in the show. We get to see so many other ones that they like added storylines and they made it like a well-rounded show, so that as we're like transitioning into season 2, where Daphne and Simon are no longer our leads, that it just doesn't like fall off of like, well, I don't care about it because I only care about those two. And like, I do think they did a great job at like transitioning Daphne into season 2. And I thought they used her really well in that. So, and like having the storylines kind of go throughout the series. And I do like that. I like those changes. I think they're interesting. I think it's like what they had to do to make a TV series.
Show. Totally. Like, they were appropriate for the show. Like, they have the Prince storyline where Daphne starts to be wooed and like eventually proposed to by a prince. And then the Prince of Prussia. And then there's also the full Marina Thompson storyline where the Featherington's distant cousin is pregnant and they're trying to scheme and trick a man into marrying her so people don't know. And then it gets exposed by Lady Whistledown.
Yeah, that's like a really wild storyline to include. And I like in the notes it says like this character is not in the book. It's not in the first book. Marina exists.
Interesting. Yes. Okay. I think I did kind of know that. But yeah, she's like not talked about in the book at all. And then she's actually a pivotal Lady Whistledown like character, because the only way that Colin doesn't marry her is that it's exposed that she's pregnant in Lady Whistledown. Like that was a smart like TV choice.
I think so.
As I mentioned before, Daphne's just like way more upset about like the marriage and stuff like that.
And like Queen Charlotte doesn't exist. Not that she doesn't exist. She's like not a character in the series.
Totally. In the book series. In the book, she's like not mentioned as like naming her diamond because she's not the diamond, and as like gossipy and like trying to find out the identity of Lady Whistledown. For me, it's actually sometimes so fucking painful to watch people not understand what sex is and where babies come from. Like when all the Bridgerton sisters are like trying to ask their brothers in their like drawing room or whatever, and like when Daphne's asking Simon in the park and stuff like that, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, and like that's the one thing I don't love about Regency romances is that it's always like the man being like, I'll teach you.
Yeah.
Like we very rarely get a man being a virgin.
Yeah.
In like as one of the leads. Like I can count on one hand how many, like, and I've read a lot of Regency romances. I could probably think of like 2 or 3 books offhand where like that's the case.
Totally. And again, if you really like analyze this book, when we're talking about like that it hinges of like Daphne doesn't know what cum is, it's so cringy. Like, how is that a book that I'm reading? Like, it's so embarrassing. I also want to talk about like their sex scenes, good sex scenes, and again, like they're done really well. And yeah, I feel like I was scandalized when I watched it. Daphne is me with dirty talk. Like Simon's like talking to her, he's like, tell me what you want and stuff like that, and she's like, I want you. Like she just can't, like she can't say anything. But why would she be able to say anything? Because she grew up,
she doesn't even know what's happening.
I know, she grew up in purity culture. It's so frustrating. Oh my god, it's tough to read books when the women in the book aren't empowered to have like sexuality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, the TV show's fucking funny. There are so many funny points in the TV show that I was like LOLing. Like when Daphne meets the prince, Simon and her, because of the ruse, they're talking about, you know, how the woman swoons over the man and stuff like that. And they're saying how rote it is, and how when Cressida Cowper or whatever gets introduced to the prince, he'll note how exquisite her dress is, and then he does that to Daphne and she like laughs and snorts, and Simon's like, I didn't know a sound so unbecoming could like come from a girl like you. It's so funny.
Yeah, it is very quippy, and it sucks that like, and I find the book reasonably quippy. Like there are moments where I was like, oh, Daphne, you are funny. Like I forgot you're not just like boring.
Totally.
It sucks that both the book and TV series are like deeply ruined by a sexual assault scene.
No, and, like, I know. That's and, understated.
Yeah, and like that's the thing is like all of the Bridgerton books I have reread multiple times. Mm-hmm. This is the first time I've gone back to the first one.
Yeah,
and like I'm also like, I don't think I can go back to that one again unless there was like a reason like this. Like it's like I'm never going back to that one for funsies.
Totally. Like I don't even think I'll watch the season 1 again like I didn't before, and I don't think I will again because it's tough when it hinges on this like awful non-consensual behavior. It's like it's pretty fucked, to be honest. In the TV series, they use this that I don't think is in the book, but correct me if I'm wrong, this like I burn for you.
Spoiler alert, it's more of a second book thing.
Interesting. But not between... Yeah, but they do... Anthony and Kate say that for each other, to each other. Yeah, interesting. Do we like that? Like, I burn
I
for
don't
you.
want a man to say that to me.
Yeah.
I like them saying it to each other.
Yeah, that's fair. The whole Anthony and Sienna also, like, obviously we don't get that in the first book because it's not from their POVs, but like I really bought into their love story, and I forgot how quickly you have to pivot to him just like not giving a fuck about her.
Well, and like out of all of the storylines that were added, this one is my least favorite.
Yeah.
Because of how much I love the second book.
I know.
And because in the second one he's supposed to be like, I'll never love. Like I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Thanks though. Don't invite me to that.
I can't even remember if he blames that on Sienna.
I don't even think
he doesn't, because they blame it on his dad.
Yeah, which is like what happens. Spoiler alert for the book. That's what happens in the book, right? So it makes sense, but then like it doesn't make sense.
He loved her.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it makes it less special for the second one.
Yeah. Okay, let's chat for a sec about Lady Whistledown's identity, and then let's talk about our internet investigation, etc. What did you think of this? In the book, it basically just alludes at the very last sentence that Lady Whistledown is a young woman writing these scandal sheets. What did you have suspicions? Were you trying to guess while you were watching?
No, because I think I read up until the point in the series where you learn the identity. So it was really poignant in the book to learn that. Like, it was pretty shocking. You're like, what?
Yeah.
But in the show, like, I get why they did it in the first season, but I also love having the mystery of it. But I think it does make sense for the show, and especially kind of like the storylines they go for later on and like blah, blah, blah. But I do love how like shocking it was in the book.
Okay, also, though, with the TV show, I was like, it's the Modiste. Like, I'm such a dummy. Like, I was like, it's fucking the Modiste. Like, they were, like, plotting those hints, and I thought I was so clever figuring that out. I'm so dumb. Like,
were you surprised at the end when it was, like, revealed?
Yeah, I was. But then it makes so much sense that I wasn't. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was shocked. Okay, let's get into our internet investigation. Julia Quinn, I pulled some quotes from her. She said, I really liked this. The journey toward happiness and love is just as important as a hero's quest. I think that's a really, like, poignant and, like, not simple in a negative way, but simple explaining that why the romance genre is important.
That is really sweet. And like, because it's so often like, it's just romance novels. It's like, no, like that can be as fulfilling as, reading Play-Doh.
100%. No, totally. And she was pretty involved in the series production as well. Like, she read through the scripts and she was a consultant. But she wasn't like in the writer's room like every step of the way, but she definitely got to weigh in. And she talks about when Bridgerton season 1 came out, she says, all of a sudden there were people who were like, wow, that made me feel so good. I feel warm and fuzzy and happy. I was swept up in it. I wonder if there's anything else there that can give me these feelings. And the giant roar you heard was 1,000 romance authors being like, hey, we're here. Our stories are here. We've been doing this for decades. Yeah, it's actually kind of brutal to think that this was a lot of people's introduction to romance novels.
Yeah, it is interesting. That's for sure. And like, I hope it's been able to open a lot of people up to something that they might not have given a chance before.
Absolutely, like as like a valid form of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I misquoted this before, but the costuming involved over 200 people and 5 months of preparation to create over 5,000 costumes. And it's insane. It's insane. It's so beautiful. The lighting of everything, like the candlelight and stuff like that, you just can't beat like the aesthetic castles and like the lilacs and the gloves and stuff like that. Okay, our Wonder Whys. We already talked about the tiny bags, but the lead characters, this is something I'm dying to fucking talk about. Why does Anthony have mutton chops? Like, it's like Mr. Darcy.
Yeah, and like it's funny to me because I'm like, in the first season, I'm like, this is so unsexy. Like, how are they gonna turn it into like sexy for season 2? And they
fucking did. No, they did.
I was like, oh, okay, I'm here now.
No,
And
Anthony
I
Bailey's
think that's
so
like
hot.
why. I think they
Yeah.
like did something to make him like not sexy, that in the second series they're like, all right, you thought you knew. And I feel like they did the same for Colin, because I found him unsexy in season 1 and 2. And then like I'm seeing these photos and I'm like, okay,
I
yep,
get
we're
it. I
here.
fucking get
Yep.
it. No, literally, it's so funny. It kind of reminds me Colin's glow up is kind of like how Stassi from VPR talks about her chin implant. And she's
Mhm.
like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that chin implant. And like, there's just something, he got like, I guess, a little more tan and a little more
Like a
buff
haircut.
and a
Yeah.
good haircut. Man, a haircut can do like wonders on a man. He was just like a kid in the
Yeah.
first season.
Yeah.
Oh my
It
god.
works. It works well.
Yeah, and Anthony, I was like, oh, he's hot. Like, he's a hot man. But in season 2, I was like gripping my like chair, like the arms of my chair when I was watching
Like,
it.
he was lead in season 2. Like, I cannot praise them enough for like the scene of him getting out of the water.
That's literally, I was thinking
The
that.
female gaze was represented in that scene.
Oh my god, I was just thinking about that when that came out. The amount of TikToks I just watched of him getting out of the water and the shirt being like see-through and stuff like that. Like, I'm actually embarrassed at how often I looked at that picture. Oh my god, he's so fucking hot.
I'm right there with you.
They also they put this like bad fake mole on Sienna, and then like Eloise's hair is like insane.
There is some interesting hair choices. I will say that.
It's like you really think that they like did something in season 1 and then season 2 rolls around and it's like, no, everyone's just better. And elevated. This is a issue I have with ACOTAR too. Why in the book and the TV series do they glaze over the wedding and like the engagement?
This is every series, like every book in the series. Like, we are not seeing weddings at all.
Yeah, like,
and I don't know, and it's like I feel like they always go back to like, well, it was a small wedding because they had to do it so quickly.
Yeah, I guess so, but it's just like you usually think the wedding is like the pinnacle of like scenes that you would want to depict, especially on TV.
Yeah, and like I wonder if it's like an intentional choice in the book to like say like just being married is not like the end goal and like the end all and be all of like your life together or whatever. Like, that's not, the wedding is not the happily ever after. It's what comes after.
True. Which is a good metaphor for life too.
Yeah.
Gripes and grumbles. Okay, so like this is so fucking annoying, and I know that this is just like this is society with women everywhere, but it's like the way that the men bitch about the mamas being so fucking hungry to marry off their daughters and so pushy and stuff like that, when there is no other way for them to move up in society and they don't have jobs to like occupy their time, and the way that they just blame it on the mamas for being annoying when it's like, no, you set that up for them to like rely on, that is so fucking annoying.
You're right, and I've never really thought about it. And I think it's because the men are so selfish. Like, it does not occur to them to like think about anyone else.
No, it's so brutal. Like, it's so hard to watch the men, like especially Anthony and Simon, like walking into balls and being like, oh my god, this like woman has to talk to me about her daughter and her daughter's embroidery skills and stuff like that. And it's like, you made it like this. Like, freaking annoying, man. Their accents are also so different from like, I feel like modern day British accents. Like, they say issue and I don't even negotiate. I can't even repeat it.
Yeah, like I think that is kind of like historically accurate.
Correct. Yeah.
Where it's like the upper class societies of England were kind of pushing for this accent. There's a really interesting scene from one of the seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race where one of the queens is talking about how like we have what was the original like English accent, and it's the like upper classes that tried to put this new accent, and people were like, no, you're stupid. Like, but that's the case. Like, it's not that our accents devolved from what theirs is, it's that theirs has changed, and like move forward to like sound more posh, and then it just kind of went in line with that.
Because they wanted something else to separate themselves from the Lurcast.
If I'm not getting these details right, there's no need to add.
No, I'm like nodding my head, like everything. No, literally, if it's don't just like a whisper.
Yeah, it's like a whisper of like, what is the actual truth?
No, literally, just you don't need to contact us though. Like, we're good. I do want to say though, I do want to bring back countenance, which is like demeanor, and I do want to bring back courses, which is your period.
Sure, let's do that.
This is again a little bit spoilery, but also not really. I hate when people get so annoyed about like spoilers that are like so minute. Like, anyways, okay. A lot of the storylines just die in season 1 that we just like don't get picked up in season 2.
Like, which one? Like, what is it that you're missing from it?
Yeah, I think I'm mainly talking about Sienna. But then also, I guess, like Simon's friend, the boxer, we just don't see. But it's like, I guess that makes sense because that's Simon's friend.
No, see, he's the bartender, is he not?
Yeah, he comes back in a small role, but like
he buys the bar with the money from
the boxing match.
Yeah, from like losing the boxing match.
But like,
so I like that. But because he's Simon's friend, it is kind of like,
why else would you? It's kind of like Che Diaz on And Just Like That, or any of the new characters. It's like you have to weave them into the main characters in different ways, because then if you break up with the person, they just disappear because they're not friends with anyone else. Finally, our sequel scoop. This was at its premiere, the #1 watched show on Netflix. It is now moved to #4, but it's like #4 all-time Netflix viewers, with over, I can't even read this number out loud, like 113 million.
What a great question you're asking.
113,300,000 viewers. Why can't I read a fucking number? Like,
I've never been able to.
No, I'm looking at it and I can't read it. Like, it's so embarrassing. So as we discussed before, there was a lot of discussion about the colorblind casting and the sexual assault scene. And we obviously have season 2, which covers Anthony and Kate. Daphne is briefly featured, but Simon is away on business. This is what I wanted to say. Regé-Jean Page, where have you been? Because he didn't want to come back for season 2 to be a side character, which I understand. It's a big filming commitment if you're just going to be a side character. But babe, you have, I think he had like a Marvel movie or some type of action movie, but like nothing else. And I feel like I know like pop culture. I feel like he's been nowhere to be seen. Like he hosted SNL and like all of that. And then just kind of like his career died. And I was like, you should have signed on for Bridgerton season 2.
Yeah, like whatever he wants to do with his career, and I can understand why, I can understand, but it does kind of suck because one of the things I am most looking forward to about season 3 is seeing more of Anthony and Kate being a couple. And like, it would have been fun to see that in season 2 with Simon and Daphne, because we do have some cute moments in the book of that. Like not a lot, but there are a few moments like where Simon pops in, he's just like so in love with Daphne. And then like for season 3, that means we're not seeing Phoebe Dynevor at all, or
I
like
know.
Daphne's character at all.
That's the other thing, is it shoots Daphne in the foot too, because there's only so many times you can say Simon's away on business, I'm here with the kids, before it starts making Simon look like an absentee father.
Yeah,
which is also a trope we don't want to show on TV. So it's like, that pisses me off too. And
because I thought Phoebe was so brilliant,
so
in season
good, with her little itty bitty bangs and her swan neck. Like, I don't know, this is just her role. Like, again, I saw in Younger, like, no, this is her era. Like, she's just so great. I loved their love story, minus, the problematic parts. And I'm just so sad that we won't get more of them for season 3. And that's the best part of ensemble cast, is you get to check in with them, and we just don't get that, and it really sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the third season, as we mentioned, is going to cover Colin and Penn. It's going to come out May 16th and June 13th. It's in 2 chunks. And it's so wild that we haven't had new Bridgerton, other than Queen Charlotte, content in 2 years.
Yeah, and like I don't think this is the way they planned it. Like, obviously, the filming schedules with COVID and then the actor strikes and everything, I think that has really made an impact of when this is coming out. So I'll be interested to see for season 4 what that looks like.
Yeah. Any last thoughts, Haley? I feel like we've talked about fucking everything.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to see how season 3 plays out, especially because it's the 3rd season, but it's the 4th book, and I understand why they did it that way. And I hope we start tying in some of the other stories into this series so to like smoothly transition into 4. I would love in the 4th season if we actually like covered 2 of the love stories, because some of them kind of lay over each other, and I would really be interested to see that. Yeah. Personally, basically, I just want to bully you into reading the rest of the books.
I know. I'm going to. I think I'll start on the Viscount and we can cover it in March, and then
you can read you could read 3 Bridgerton novels in the time it takes you to read 1
ACOTAR. My God, that was the other thing. I was like, it's so nice after like learning the magic systems and like all of that and like the battle scenes. It's so nice to just be like, he shows up.
I'm not thinking that hard.
Yeah, he shows up, he brings her a ring and they chat and then they move on to like, it's so nice. My God. Okay, this was so much fun. Where can the listeners find you and anything else you want to plug?
You can find me weekly on the Bachelor RHAP-ups podcast. We are covering Joey's season. If you want to go back, Torry actually did the draft with us. We do a seasonal draft, and you did it with us this year. So if you want to catch up on that, that is available in the feeds. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @strong_. And if you want to check out my Bookstagram account where I read and review books constantly, that is at the Strong Library.
And I'm like in 2nd place in the draft and you're in 1st place.
I am annihilating in the draft.
No, I know. I think you're going to take it. I don't even think we can catch up and it's only week 2.
I know. I just
like 10 more weeks and
I slam dunked this one. I don't even know how I only about once every like 4 years I do well in the draft.
No, and you're like killing it. But I lost so many people first night. I think 2 or 3 of my 5 picks, and
you're like top picks too.
No, I know, which is so embarrassing. But I'm like holding on, so we'll see if I have longevity in this draft.
We'll see.
Okay, thanks for coming on. And that's the story of the Duke and I. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Haley for joining me on today's show. A few housekeeping items. I totally realized only during the edit that Daphne's kids are named after the alphabet too. Like it's A, B, C, and then D for David. And I thought that was a very cute little detail that Julia Quinn included in the novel. And this isn't my first time talking about Bridgerton. I have done lots of other episodes on the show, including a full season 2 recap on my podcast, Ready to Be Petty. If you are interested in more Bridgerton discussion and you can't wait for Haley and I's next episode, definitely check those out. I will include all of the links in the episode show notes. And I've said it before, and I will definitely say it again, but please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review, especially because we are a new podcast. It's vital that we show some sort of listenership and good feedback from those listeners. It can really determine whether a person decides to click on the episode or not. So if you could leave me a rating and review, I would appreciate it so much. And if you already have, thank you. I really appreciate it. Maybe I'll read some of those out in future episodes. If you'd like to suggest a book or leave a voicemail, you can do so via the links in the episode show notes. We would love to hear from you and include some more audience participation. Our next episode is Twilight. Until then, happy reading. For Ready to Be Romanced, I'm Torry. Goodbye.